There isn't any such thing as a normal day at HorseWorld, really. We have a general structure to the day that we will run by, but it can change from a couple of hours in the morning to having planned the afternoon, and everything can go to pot as soon as a rescue get called in. So there is a normal day at HorseWorld, but it will change from one day to the next. So, you know, the general care of the 95 horses that we have here, and then everything in between, if you like. The first thing that we do in the morning for everybody is to have a debriefing. So when people come in, if they've not worked the day before, or they have but they've missed something, we have everything written down on paperwork that myself and my manager make sure that we do every evening so that people know what's happened the day before. So everybody has a debriefing with that. We go through any medication that might have changed, any horses that might have moved fields, anything like that that's changed, we'll go through that. And that only takes about 10 to 15 minutes, it's not long. And then people will be delegated the jobs that they're doing for the morning. Whether that be looking after the horses that are on the yard, so say horses that might have been in that have had an injury and they're stabled for some reason, might be horses that are close to the yard. Then another job could be checking the horses out on the rounds, which means taking the Kubotas out, which is our four-wheel little drive buggies that take us out to the fields, or it might be sorting out horses that we have at isolation, which might be new rescued horses that we've had in that are still in the isolation procedure, that is down away from the main yard. So the morning rounds, when we are walking to check the horses or taking the Kubotas, when we go to the fields on the morning, what we are doing is first initially just making sure that all the horses are accountable. So every horse that's in that field is meant to be in that field, and if they're not in that field, where are they? And once we've checked the horses are all accountable, then we check each individual horse over, make sure they've got no cuts, scrapes, sores, make sure they're not lame. So we ask them to take a few steps, whether that be forwards or backwards or to the side, depending on which way they want to move, just so that we can see them put weight on all four of their legs and make sure that they're not lame and they can walk forward, make sure that they're happy. Anything that we might have noticed, you know, they might be looking like they're putting on a bit of weight, they might have been itching if we've got sweet itch ponies, they might have got a cut on their nose, anything that's out of the ordinary that wasn't there the day before. We have sheets that we call our round sheets, which we take with us, so they've got any notes that we might need to check. So if we've got horses that are laminitic prone, then we'll check their pulses and their feet every morning. Horses that have got breathing conditions, we might check their resps every morning that are out in the field. So each individual horse has got his own notes written down on there, so we know what we're checking for when we're checking that horse. The biggest challenges we have is grazing requirements is the biggest thing we have. We've got quite rich grass here. It used to be a dairy farm years ago. So the grass that we have is very rich, and especially in the summer. A lot of the ponies that we're seeing in our care at the moment are native breeds or breeds that put on weight very easily. So our biggest challenge at the moment is making sure that we can keep the weight of our horses down. But that's not as easy as it sounds. We've got some horses so we've got a lot of male horses that can't go in with female horses. Even though they're castrated, they still might be acting riggy or acting a little bit too playful for the ladies. So they have to be with the other boys. Sometimes they don't get on with each other, so they have to be in a separate field, but they also have to be in a field with restricted grazing. We might have some horses that have breathing conditions, so they're not allowed to be in a field that is too dusty, but they might also have restricted grazing. So when you have restricted grass, you then get dust on the floor. And so we then have to try and manage that at the same time. We have some horses that might have breathing conditions, sweet itch, and restricted grazing. So we have to manage all three of those conditions as well. They might not be able to then go in with the female horses. So it's not as easy as just putting horses into a field and checking them. They all have their individual problems and ailments that we need to then work out around all the other 95 horses that we have here, and kind of get them all living happily together. It's not an easy job, especially in the winter. It's lovely and wonderful at the moment because the sun's shining, but in the winter when it's 45 50 mile an hour winds and you've got to walk hay out into the middle of a field and the mud is over your ankles, and you've got horses running around you, it is very hard work, and it can be quite exhausting. When we come in after our breaks, you know, you're taking all your clothes off, drying them on the radiator, putting your next set of dry clothes on again, and you do that within an hour and you're soaking wet again. So it can be a very tough job. So hard working has to be kind of one of those big things that come along with the job, yeah.
We start off with a list of horses that need to be fed and any meds that they need in it. And we get all the hay nets ready, and some of them need to be soaked, so we have to drain the soaker. And we get the wheelbarrow ready just so that we can put everything in it and start picking up poo. Some of them need medications that you can't really just give it to them on its own. So if they do need it in a feed, we just make a bucket mix of chaff and nuts. They get their feed, and sometimes they are in with horses that don't have a feed, which makes it a bit difficult because you have to bring them out and you feel a bit sorry for them because they don't have anything and they're like, please. But yeah, some horses don't need it because obviously they don't need the medication, or they're overweight, so you don't want to give them extra. So there's a medications board, like a list, and we have all the feeds of all the horses, and under the name of each horse we have what the feed they have, what medications they have, how much, and you just measure it out. Sometimes it's like whole sachets, you just put whole sachet in. If they've got a hay board as well for any hay that we need, and you just use that to kind of guide you, but it does change every day, so you've always got to check it. So you want to make sure that they're handled regularly to just keep them in touch with humans. Obviously it's such a big site that if you left them they'd probably go back to being semi-wild again. So you just want to make sure that you're also checking them when you're grooming them. It just gives you a chance to bond with them, and it just helps them kind of stay in touch with humans and being handled regularly. And it gives you a chance just to you see any wounds that you might not have seen when you were actually out in the field with their rugs on. And yeah, they seem to really enjoy it as well. So I really actually like it first thing in the morning, to be honest, because they're all so excited for their feed, and just seeing their little faces, and the donkeys especially when they start calling to you, everyone knows they're calling to you, and it's lovely just meeting them, seeing them all again, especially if I've been off for like a couple of days. It's so nice just to be able to see them again and say hello, and yeah, I love that. Seeing them actually improve and get better but being handled. So you see horses come in that are like Sydney, and they're really thin and they've got loads of wounds, and they're just really, some of them are really scared to be touched by humans and they're not used to it. And then as they build up trust with us and they get used to us, it's just so lovely to see them really progress and go on to homes and just be loved by people. It's really lovely.